Soledar is not over yet.
I didn't think.
Honest and Waterhouse report.
Yeah.
But it's, I remember my reaction at the time.
Fun because
people come there.
Taking it out.
No,
Oh.
that it was a reasonable, it was a reasonable request for a business.
Well, they're
business
just
hours
huge
to
now
have
because
that
they're
out.
unhappy about.
Yeah.
Right. You know, what's
It
the-
wasn't a narrow sideway, sidewalk, it wasn't way, it wasn't.
Yeah. And it's not a business.
But if you ask these two, Wagner
business.
are clearing the city, they say.
We have somebody on the thing and it is
Happy New Year.
5:35, so.
Thank you.
Haven't
You as
seen you
well.
this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm busy already this year.
5:35, I guess,
Do you have copies, Joe?
See.
Just the one? We should have printed our own.
Oh,
I spent my own paper, now down to about
I should ask that down.
five pieces of paper, and I have to
yes.
definitely go buy a new.
There are activities that I miss, that's not one.
I enjoyed it because it still is a family.
No, okay.
Let me get this, my screen share up here.
My siblings show up and as long as they're not complaining, it's fine.
So I'll go ahead and start the meeting here for us, since we don't have a chair.
Yeah.
And I'll call roll. Kim Morris,
Here.
Michael Behrman,
Here.
Stu Stewart,
Here.
John Leo.
Here.
Bob Thoma is absent, Matty Hines is absent, Kathy Macho.
Here,
Kathy. All right, we have a quorum. The first thing we should really do, I think, I know I put it as agenda A, but we should elect our but anybody else that's here today can be nominated for chair.
Well, I would like to nominate Kim as chair.
Second, that's who I wanted to nominate too.
Kim, you comfortable with that?
I'm okay with
All
that.
right, great.
okay.
We have a motion, a second. We can do an all in favor.
Hi,
Any opposed? Motion passes.
all right.
Thank you for taking on chair this year. And I'll hand the meeting over to you.
I just want to add a comment.
Yeah.
Through the grapevine, I heard that there was a rumor that Kim was no longer on the ZBA for reasons other than her moving out of town. And I just wanted to clarify that the
Who?
reason that
Oh,
she's no
Kristen,
longer.
Kristen.
Kristen.
I'm sorry, Kristen is no longer on the ZBA because she moved out of town. And for no other reason.
Well, okay, that's what I,
The other thing that I would like to point out is to introduce Michael Behrman, who is our new addition to the ZBA. He'll be joining us and for all the fun and festivities we have, right?
oh, yeah.
Thank you. I
Thank you for being willing to be on.
look forward to it. And, I think I called Kim Kathy by mistake.
Okay.
That's okay. I
That's
thought
okay.
Kristen Crystal. So.
You know, yeah, really.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
so then I guess we're moving on, correct? Do you have a? Can they put this on the screen or is everybody read?
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
If it's up on the screen, then we don't need.
Yeah, I don't. Right.
That was my intention all along and I,
That's what I kind of thought after I asked you for a copy, but.
That's why we wanted.
I
you
meant to
share.
just print.
Jason asked us to
I printed the whole darn thing.
things are finicky for me.
Is that a new laptop?
No, and I think it's the same old laptop. We've had this for, I think it's about 7 years old now. And it's been passed around until this has been its home, so it's.
So while we're waiting, has everybody read the minutes?
I wasn't here, so. actually know, but
No, the minutes looked accurate to me, so I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Write that down here. Motion by John, second by Sue. Would you like it all in favor or?
Yeah, all in favor?
I,
that's fine.
Opposed? Public comments and correspondence. There's nobody here. Is there anybody on Zoom?
We do have somebody on Zoom. We have one participant. They don't have a name there, but if they would like to jump in and say something, now is their opportunity.
No? Okay. So next order of business is approval of the schedule for 2023, which Jeff has on the screen now.
So. The application deadline is the day of the meeting,
Well, no, so
okay,
the application deadline is the day of the meeting from the month before. So as an example,
oh.
yep, so we'll have our February 8th meeting, which would be our next potential meeting. The deadline for application for that meeting is today, January 11th. The reason for that 1 month time frame is we have a process. I have to make sure that they have everything that they need to me so that we can have a discussion. We have to post a notice in the paper. We have to send out a mailing to everybody within 300 feet of the property. And then we have to have all the material available for display for at least 15 days prior to the meeting. The applicant needs to post stakes on the ground at their property for at least 6 days prior to the meeting. So that primarily, as far as the visit to the property, if any of the ZBA members would like to visit the property to see where the project is taking place, and I always encourage you to do that. They can, an opportunity for any neighbors or the general public to come in and review that plan to see if they have any concerns about the project and how it may or may not affect them.
Okay.
That's why we have that time delay, so that we can have that material available.
Well, I remember
For things.
taking the opportunity to go out and look and do it. That's fine.
Yeah. So yes, the deadline was today at noon for anybody to bring in their material to me. That we would know that we would have that for the next month's meeting. We have not received any applications for next month's meeting, so unless there's other business that you feel we need to take on or city staff feels we need to take on, we more than likely won't have a February meeting.
Okay.
But other than that, the schedule remains potentially the same as last year, meeting on the second Wednesday of each month at 5:30 p.m. If anybody knows that that's a continuing conflict or they'd like to adjust, we can always look at adjusting that. Otherwise, we can continue as
Do we have to approve this?
we should do a motion to approve the schedule for the year.
So move.
Second,
Just do a,
All in favor is fine.
yeah, all in favor,
yes,
opposed? Schedule's approved. Review of zoning board of appeals bylaws. Are there changes to that?
At this point in time, no, I don't have any proposed changes. Normally, we have the attorney review it to see if there's any, and generally that would be if there's any changes to the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act or the Planning Enabling Act. Occasionally, there will be some change posted there that may prompt that we need to update our bylaws to make sure that we're current with the state regulations. I emailed Jim Raymer to see if he had any thoughts of things that we needed to update. I haven't heard back from him at this point. I don't think we have any.
I know you did it last year.
Error. I don't know if it's an error or not. Just the annual election of officers, like we did today, states June. The first regular meeting in June of each year.
Oh, yeah, we've historically done that in January.
So it's
I'll make a
section,
note.
Article 2, Section 4. I mean, it's-
Oh. Wonder what the rationale was for June in the first place.
I thought maybe it was just a typo because of the
June,
J's.
January.
Yeah.
Autocorrect.
It
Improving the
may
world
be
one letter at
that
a
that was
time.
what we did.
Not that it's probably not a big.
No, it's a
That's
good,
a
it's a
good
good
catch.
catch.
That's a good
But
catch.
Logic,
Yeah.
if you're starting a new year, I mean, elections and council members and appointments have always been early in the year, so that's an interesting. I never caught that. I never saw it.
Okay.
That's a good change.
Thank you for pointing that out, and we should probably adjust that to January unless you guys would prefer to do it in June.
No, I
It
think
makes more
January
sense
makes
to do it in
sense.
January at the beginning of the year.
With
I think
the
so.
Schedule and.
Right after the election. and- Yeah.
Oh, good, somebody read them.
Yeah,
Really?
well, I read them. I haven't read them
I
recently.
didn't read them like. I did read them, but I didn't read them like,
Like a lawyer.
right, but I just.
You caught that, and I,
It was,
That's
it
good.
was
Yeah.
like on page 1. So the eyes weren't glazed
Right.
over yet, so I'm just
No,
kidding.
it's a good-
I didn't- yeah.
Now, has John from, was it Beckett and Rader? Has he seen these?
I don't know that he's reviewed the ZBA bylaws. I can certainly have. him
I'm
take
just
a look at
wondering,
them.
as, you know, we've talked about, you know, basically cross-training, cross-pollinization, whatever, between ZBA and planning. I'd be interested to see if he has any observations about it. Because he would actually have a trained eye and might be able to see something that might make sense.
Sure.
Okay. It also says a vice chair.
Does it?
Mhm.
Do we need a vice chair?
It does.
Chair shall elect a chair and a vice chair.
Okay. That makes
Which
sense.
would make sense because
That
in
if
the
the
past,
chair
we've
is-
had to, each meeting that Kristen was gone, we've had to elect somebody. This way we would have somebody in place.
Right.
So should we do that tonight?
Yes. Let's.
Let's do that.
You have to,
Should we elect Bob since he's not here?
I don't know that we can appoint somebody that's not present. If we would like to, what we can do is we can temporarily, we can table that until next meeting for when Bob is here, if people think that that would be what we'd like to do. So that we have that
Didn't
opportunity.
he chair one of the last
Yeah,
meetings?
he has chaired meetings
Yeah.
and he does a nice job with, he enjoys it.
Yeah,
Well, he was chair for a while,
Many,
and
yeah.
then he moved out of town, so he couldn't be. Now that he's back. So I'd be fine with that.
So we can,
But he does have he should have the opportunity to say. Thanks, but no thanks.
if you guys would
Yeah.
like to table the election of the vice chair to next meeting, we can certainly. do
Whenever that might be.
Whenever that might be. And I hope we don't forget that we need to do that by that time.
Oh, be in the minutes.
Right.
Make sure that we have it in the minutes, all right? Do we have any other thoughts, questions, ideas regarding the bylaws?
No, but I will go back and reread them
I
now.
will read them again.
The other thing, one thing that we may update, I don't know if we have it in the bylaws already or if it's a separate rule. I know one of the things that we've done in the past is we would have the bylaws and then we would have some separate rules. And I know that Jim Raymer is trying to incorporate, if we have any of those other separate rules, to just put them right in the bylaws. And one of the things that we've had that I think may have previously been a separate rule was appeal deadlines. And I don't know if that's something we've already moved over into this, or if we still need to do that. So if we have a change, that potentially could be it, is just not necessarily making a change to the appeal deadline. We'd like to keep that with whatever the zoning enabling act says, but just take whatever it is and move it here if it's not here already. And normally I would say that that's not something that.
Add a reference to the state. Or the actual terms for the appeal.
Of who they're appealing to.
No, the time frame. Whatever it is that you said that you wanted the rules. Are you talking about incorporating the rules or reference to the state rules?
We have to have, we have to adopt our own rules, but they need to comply with the state zoning enabling.
You're talking about
Act.
the specific rules.
Right, so, and I think there may have been a change, maybe, we'll see.
Okay.
If that is the case, Jim Raymer will let us know and get back with us, and
Okay.
so we may bring this back around, but I haven't heard anything at this point, so. We're at Article 4. For 5, looks like we've got action on the appeal, so we've got some appeal information in here already. And then we've got some procedures for specific variance requests. That really hasn't changed, I don't think. But I don't think we need a motion to approve anything, because unless we feel that we have some suggested changes that we need to do.
And just the one you talked about.
January date.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, well, I'll get with Jim Raymer about that and see if we update that. So then we'll at least bring it back to approve that change.
And you're waiting to hear back from them anyway, so it can all be incorporated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all we had for, oh, sorry.
That, so we're on to member comments. Anybody have comments?
Oh, I was going back through my inbox, cleaning it out, and I rediscovered the message from Bill Mulder that you sent on from Bill Mulder about the training opportunity the morning of January 28th.
That's right.
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday, the 28th, so there's a couple weeks yet, and we're
Mhm.
just to tell him that we're interested. If that's the case, I plan to go to that, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
do.
it
I
responded.
think I put it on my calendar.
I think they do a nice job with the training.
Yes, and it'll probably be John Icoangeli.
Great.
I had lunch with him the other day and he mentioned that he was putting together the material that we were gonna review. So,
And that's 9:30. I show on the
9:30
28th.
till noon on the 28th.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
was
Saturday morning.
planning on going
Yeah,
to.
so it's nice.
and that's nice. And I think most of you met him. He did some training for us before, and I think we were getting into the role routine of trying to do at least some type of training each year before COVID hit.
Mhm.
And then COVID obviously mangled things a little bit. And
Mhm.
I think it was Mark Boudet at the Planning Commission brought up, let's start doing more, and a lot of people thought that was good, and I can't
Well, the
remember.
last training I attended was quite good.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
Yeah. And we've done things from, well, we had that large citizen planner program, which was, I think, 6 days.
Mm.
That was a big thing. And it's, if you can do it, it's great. It's really in depth. It provides a lot of background on planning and zoning, but it is, it's, I think it was 6 days for several hours each day. So this will be obviously much shorter and more on a specific.
John's doing a good job. I've been really pleased.
Yeah.
With his input and his perspective. So.
Yeah, I know, I've enjoyed working with him, and I think Victor has the same opinion as well, so.
Good.
Yeah. The only other thing that I would add in comments is we, through the redevelopment ready community project that we're working on, they encourage various, like, not necessarily merging, but like joint meetings of various boards to where you would have a joint meeting to meet with another board. Obviously, the one that ties in the most would be the Planning Commission.
Right.
So if you guys are open to it, we'll talk about this at the Planning Commission as well, of setting down at some point to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the ZBA. It's a great opportunity for two things to happen. One, you are the ones that are hearing the appeals to the zoning code of the things that don't work. A great example of that is a couple of years ago, we had somebody that appealed that they needed a variance in their front yard so that they could put in a handicap ramp. you felt that there was room in the code to make an adjustment so that those appeals weren't needed. So we made a recommendation to the planning commission to make that change to the code so that it was easier to be done. That's a great example of things that we can do with the appeals that we hear. So if you have any recommendations or thoughts in that regard to them of things that you'd like to see. And then it's an opportunity for the planning commission to provide explanation for the various, parts of the zoning code. It's like, hey, we drafted this rule because, and that's why we'd like you to make sure to adhere to it unless absolutely necessary, vice versa, whatever. So I feel it's a great opportunity for both parties to discuss why they want to do things.
I think it is too.
So we'll aim to do that at some point this year.
What day and time does planning commission meet?
Planning commission meets on the third Thursday of each month at 5:30 in the evening. So I don't know if we'll try and do something on a ZBA night or on a planning commission night, or if we do a special meeting at some other time, but we'll make sure that we work something out that works for the best for both groups. So.
And not to poke the hornet's nest or not, but recently there was an instance where several commissioners on the planning commission felt that we'd screwed up. Stated so on the record.
Oh,
And,
okay. Which
that
was
might be an interesting one to explore,
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think,
because I took personal umbrage to that because I didn't agree, but it's something to talk about. As
Yeah,
to why
sure.
they think, what do they think our role is? How do they believe that we make decisions? And why did they think that it was an inappropriate decision?
agreed, yeah,
Because
I think.
usually I don't see any conflict between the two, so this one really jumped out at me.
And that was an interesting situation. John's referring to the Barbara Latham variance request at 680 Pine Street.
That's the meeting I missed. Okay.
Not to speak for I think one comment that was made was that they felt that the house was a bit large,
Mhm.
but I can't speak to all of their thoughts of why they felt that way. But they felt that maybe there could have been more discussion here.
Right.
Were they privy to the same background that we were, where we heard that the house had already been downsized and
Well,
moved and so forth? Did they start with that understanding?
yes, they had that information. The difficulty here, I think, is the zoning board of appeals was looking at it with one eye for certain details in regard to a specific concern that had to be addressed, which was practical difficulty. The planning commission was looking at it with a different eye, with a specific concern that needed to be addressed, which was the safety and stability of the bluff, right, with that restrictive bluff zone. And so
That's interesting though, because we wanted to defer to the engineers and the planning commission regarding, we set that whole issue aside.
right, which is
consciously
appropriate.
On the record
Mhm.
and said, this isn't for us to fold into our decision because planning commission and the engineers take care of this.
Right,
And that came up several times.
Hmm.
yeah,
So
The
interesting.
same topic, same people, the architect and the owners were there. And the same topics were discussed. It was more the interpretation. I want to be careful here.
Hmm.
How the members of the planning commission were interpreting the decision made by the ZBA.
Hmm.
And calling out at the planning commission meeting, just saying that we screwed up.
Yeah, that's not really.
So it's not productive.
No.
It's not productive, so
So-
having that
Thank you.
discussion, I think. Would be a great way to get, because we don't meet that often, so trying to come up with specific items within the code that we think. Need to be changed.
Yeah.
That would be tough for me to do. But
Yeah.
talking about how we work, what we do, what we consider, and why they felt it was inappropriate. Might be productive.
If we had wanted to push back on that project because we were concerned about the bluff and the engineering, would we have had a basis for doing that?
I don't know that I can answer that question directly. I think the best way to answer that is we always have to keep in mind that the decision we're making has to be based on the grounds of practical difficulty. And practical difficulty, it's not black and white, right? I think there's 3 or 4 components that are part of that. One is the strength of their argument, right? What are the issues that create the practical difficulty? And that should be something with the property. And in that way, the proximity to the bluff is very much part of what caused their practical difficulty. You had the practical difficulty of the bluff taking up part of their property. You had the practical difficulty of the shallowness of their lot compared to other properties. So that leads to the strength of their argument, right? And maybe it's a really strong argument, like a great example of a strong practical difficulty. If my property is only 30 feet wide and my side yard setbacks are 15 feet on each side, there's no buildable area left. But if it's a lot of record, you have to allow them to build something. So what's a reasonable, so first is how strong is the practical difficulty? And if it's a really strong argument, then that maybe opens up for more for them. If it's a very weak argument, you have to take that into consideration.
But if I buy a piece of property that doesn't, that's not practical to build on.
It shouldn't be a lot of record if that's the case.
But sometimes you just have situations where they are, right? Like we have a whole subdivision of the Southern and Crandalls where every single lot in there is technically non-conforming.
Where is that?
Southern and Crandalls, so below the bluff,
Oh.
4th Street, 3rd Street, and
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
some of the 4th Street and 3rd Street.
Mhm.
Every single platted subdivided lot in that district is 52.8 feet wide.
Ah.
The minimum lot size in the city of Harbor Springs for any zoning district
Mhm.
is 65 feet. So every single parcel there has a potential issue. And back in the 90s, we saw a lot of requests for variances because of that narrowness, right? And actually, I think at that time, that was another good example of the ZBA and the Planning Commission working together. The ZBA said, hey, we're granting a lot of variances here. Something needs to be done to address this. So it went back to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission adopted some special rules for that neighborhood, right? The second part is it a reasonable ask, right? If they have a really strong practical difficulty, maybe more of an ask is okay. If they're, and again, it boils in. So you've got that, you've got reasonable alternatives, and then you have the complaints or concerns that you might get from the public. So if the public is concerned about a specific issue, it may or may not really pertain to the practical difficulty.
Mhm.
If their concern is that they don't want to see a neon pink house in Harbor Springs and the plans show that the house is neon pink, that's not really something that's in our purview. If their concern is the proximity of how close that house is to a public sidewalk
Mhm.
and that it may impact their ability to use that sidewalk safely,
Mhm.
then that might very well pertain to the conversation. So we've got to take into consideration the strengths of all of those different aspects that relate to practical difficulty and try and figure out, and that's where you guys, so I know one of the concerns has been when we look at that decision matrix and the way that it spells it out, I know that sometimes members felt that it doesn't leave them a lot of room.
Mhm.
That's where the room is in the strengths of those arguments and how strong they are or how weak they might be. And the end goal then is through that discussion and looking at each of those points and weighing how strong they are. Is it reasonable to issue a variance based on the strengths or
And
weaknesses?
this
of their
is
past?
exactly the discussion that I think planning commission would benefit from.
Mhm.
Because there are a number of new people on.
Yeah.
And I'm
Planning.
remembering some of the people involved in getting the plot line here.
Yeah.
So
I
I
think-
think it would be really helpful to get this back to kind of constructive and working together.
Absolutely.
It's not helpful for them to say, well, one of the comments I think was, well, they just painted us into an unreasonable corner. which just isn't helpful,
Yeah.
especially when they didn't participate in the discussion where, you know, we really went at it from a number of different perspectives and came up with a decision.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that those are good comments that you can take back to the planning commission to share with them. I think a reasonable comment that they should bring to you, it would be, we have these rules. Make sure that people are meeting their burden of proof when coming to you, and that we're not granting somebody a project just because it looks good. I think would be something that we would expect to hear from
and
them.
again, you know, they're welcome to attend.
Yeah,
You know, if there's a lack of trust or confidence or understanding, you know, it's an open meeting.
Attend and make a
And,
productive comment that helps.
Exactly. This was my
Yeah.
concern, this was my objection based on.
Yeah.
So, and it's not necessarily fair to the applicants, either here or at the planning commission, to go into the kind of the cross communication.
Right.
I think that the, not, and I'm not trying to pick on the planning commission at all, but I think because the planning commission, so many of the members are so new. And we really don't get that type of request that they were reviewing that night. Staff probably could have done a better job of explaining what was required of the planning commission in the decision that they had to come to, and what reasons they had to have.
Which ultimately is where it came back to in a very nice way.
Right, and we probably needed to step up our game in addressing what needed to be,
Right.
you know, done.
And again, I too am not trying to pick on the planning commission. It's just when you brought it up, it just occurred to me, this is a great opportunity in that shared meeting.
Sure.
Because to a very, I think, productive topic.
Anybody else have any other thoughts, comments, gestures?
Gestures.
So,
That's, I don't know, college professor always used to say that.
gestures.
Does anybody have any thoughts, comments, or gestures they'd like to share before the classes? I know, and
Inviting gestures.
nobody ever took it from you.
No.
Gee.
Well done, yeah,
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
good gesture.
Nobody?
There's always
I
this
was
one.
just,
Oh, there's that one too.
Kim, as chair, you have the authority to adjourn the meeting.
Let's adjourn the meeting.
All right.
okay,
Thank you, Kim.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
thank you.